My mother-in-law used my social security number to open 3 credit cards and maxed out $35,000. So I took her to Judge Judy. You won't believe how I found out my own mother-in-law used my social security number to open 3 credit cards and racked up $35,000 in debt behind my back. It was a betrayal that shook me to my core and forced me to take her all the way to Judge Judy. My name's Jessica. I'm 29, living in a small town in Ohio. Married for 3 years, trying to build a life with my husband, Mike. We were the kind of couple who thought family was everything, especially his mom, Linda, who seemed so kind and supportive at first. She helped us move in, offered advice on everything from home decor to finances. But beneath her friendly smile, there was something I didn't see coming. It all started when I got a call from the credit card company about a payment I never made. At first I thought it was a mistake, maybe someone mixed up my account. But then I checked my credit report. There it was, 3 new credit cards I never applied for, with balances maxed out to nearly $35,000. My heart sank. Who would do this? And why? I immediately thought about my mother-in-law. It felt impossible to imagine she'd do something like this, but the more I looked, the more suspicious things became. The charges were in places she frequented, and the timing matched visits she made to our home. It felt like a nightmare, my own family member stealing my identity and destroying my credit without a second thought. I confronted Mike, who was shocked and furious. We were both hurt and confused. How do you protect yourself when the person who's supposed to love you the most betrays you in the worst way? But the real shock was yet to come. When I decided to talk to Linda, she didn't deny it. Instead, she acted like she was the victim, as if I was overreacting or trying to cause trouble. The nerve. That moment made me realize this wasn't just about money. It was about trust being shattered. I knew I couldn't let this go. My credit, my reputation, my future was on the line. So, after exhausting every option, we ended up on Judge Judy's bench, because if your own family won't make it right, sometimes the law has to step in. But before we got there, the story took twists I never expected. Secrets, lies, and confrontations that changed everything. And looking back, I wonder how a family could fall so far apart over something so devastating. This isn't just a story about stolen money. It's about betrayal, survival, and fighting back when you're blindsided by the people you trust most. I remember that moment like it was yesterday, the moment I realized this wasn't just some mix-up or clerical error. When the credit card company called, I was still hoping it was a mistake. I mean, who steals a social security number from their own daughter-in-law? The idea was so absurd, I almost laughed it off. But then, seeing those 3 new credit cards on my credit report, each maxed out, charges piling up, my stomach dropped. I tried to act normal at first. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, especially about Linda. She'd always been friendly, almost too friendly sometimes, but family is family, right? So I smiled, I chatted with her during her visits, pretending everything was fine while my mind was racing. Inside, though, the puzzle pieces started clicking into place. The late nights she'd spend at our house, helping Mike with his taxes, the sudden cash withdrawals we couldn't explain, even her constant questions about our finances. Red flags that I'd missed or ignored because I didn't want to see them. I remember thinking, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe it's nothing. But deep down, a voice whispered, "Something is very wrong." I found myself retracing every moment I shared with Linda over the past months. I remembered the time she insisted on organizing my mail and paperwork to help out. I recalled how she always asked for Mike's wallet, just to check something. It was the little things that made me uneasy now, but back then, they seemed innocent. The hardest part? The growing distance between Mike and me as we both tried to process what was happening. He was confused and angry but hesitant to believe his own mother capable of such deception. Our conversations grew strained, filled with tension and silent doubts. I hated feeling like I was accusing someone I should trust, but the evidence was undeniable. I started secretly monitoring our finances, checking bills and statements obsessively. I even went as far as freezing our accounts temporarily, which caused a massive blow-up when Linda realized what I'd done. That's when the true battle began, not just for our money, but for our sanity and peace. One evening, while sorting through a pile of mail, I found an envelope addressed to me with suspicious charges detailed inside. That was the moment I knew. This was not a one-time slip-up. It was a carefully orchestrated scheme. I told Mike, and we decided it was time to confront Linda. But when we did, the shock was bigger than we imagined. Instead of remorse, we were met with denial and a twisted version of the truth. She claimed she was borrowing the cards to help us, that she was only trying to support the family. The audacity left me speechless. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the lies, the betrayal, the way she tried to rewrite the story to make herself the victim. I felt trapped between heartbreak and rage, unsure of how to move forward. And then came the moment that changed everything. A call from the credit company saying they needed a police report before they could freeze the accounts. That's when I realized this was going beyond family drama. This was identity theft, fraud, and a full-blown legal nightmare. We had to act fast. The decision to take Linda to court wasn't easy, but with no other options left, it became the only way to fight back. I wasn't just fighting for the money, it was about reclaiming my life and dignity. Little did I know, the courtroom battle ahead would be filled with more twists, unexpected revelations, and emotional confrontations than I could have ever imagined. I couldn't just sit and wait for this nightmare to unfold on its own. The fear, the betrayal, it pushed me to take control, even though every step felt like walking on thin ice. So I started digging deeper, quietly gathering every piece of evidence I could find without Linda knowing. I checked bank statements, saved emails, screenshots of charges, even recorded conversations when I could. It was exhausting and heartbreaking, but I had to know the full truth. The tension at home was unbearable. Every time Linda came over, I felt like I was walking into a minefield. Her smiles felt colder and her glances sharper, as if she knew I was onto her but refused to back down. Mike was caught in the middle, torn between defending his mother and trusting me. It was one of the hardest things we ever faced as a couple. One night, while going through some paperwork, I found something shocking, a receipt from a luxury boutique charged to one of the credit cards opened in my name. The date? The same day Linda said she was helping at home. It was the proof I needed that this wasn't about family support. It was theft. My heart raced, but I didn't react right away. I saved the receipt and planned my next move carefully. I started contacting people who might help. Friends, financial advisors, even lawyers. I needed allies because I was drowning in emotions and confusion. Then came the day I confronted Linda again. I laid out the evidence, hoping she'd break down, apologize, and try to make things right. Instead, she doubled down on her lies, claiming she had no idea the charges were real and that the credit cards were just for emergencies. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Her words made me feel sick, but also fueled a fire inside me. This wasn't just a petty family fight anymore. It was fraud, and I was ready to fight back. But the real shock came when Linda pulled a card I never saw coming. She threatened to take custody of my dog, something she knew I'd never let go easily. It was a cruel power play designed to intimidate me into silence. That's when I realized this battle was going to get ugly. But I refused to back down. I began documenting everything meticulously: calls, texts, threats, building a case stronger than just stolen credit cards. Amid all this chaos, I stumbled upon an unexpected ally, an old family friend who had seen Linda's behavior before and warned me about her manipulative tendencies. Talking to someone who understood made me feel less alone, gave me courage to keep pushing. With every new discovery, my resolve grew. I was no longer just fighting for my credit or my money. I was fighting for my dignity, my peace, and my future. Then came the moment I never thought I'd face. Standing in a courtroom, facing Linda across the Judge Judy bench, ready to tell my story and demand justice. The day I stepped into Judge Judy's courtroom, my heart was pounding like a drum. I was nervous, scared, but determined. Facing my mother-in-law across that bench wasn't just about money anymore. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to be silenced. I knew this was my chance to expose everything and finally get justice. From the moment the judge called our case, the tension was electric. Linda sat there trying to look innocent, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. When it was my turn, I laid out the story, the stolen Social Security number, the 3 credit cards, the $35,000 debt that wasn't mine. I showed the judge all the evidence I'd collected: bank statements, receipts, text messages, even recordings of our confrontations. Judge Judy listened intently, her sharp eyes drilling into Linda when it was her turn to speak. Linda tried her usual tricks, denying everything, claiming misunderstandings, painting herself as a victim. But the judge wasn't buying it. The proof was overwhelming, and Linda's excuses fell flat one after another. At one point, Linda tried to say she thought the cards were for family emergencies and that she planned to pay them back. The judge cut her off, saying, "Using someone's identity without permission is not an emergency. It's theft." That line echoed in my mind like a victory bell. The courtroom drama wasn't just about facts. It was about emotions. I saw the betrayal in Linda's face, but I also felt my own strength rising. The judge's questions were tough, forcing Linda to confront her lies in front of everyone. Watching that happen was surreal, like a heavy weight lifting off my shoulders. But the biggest surprise was what came next. Linda, cornered and desperate, tried to shift the blame onto Mike and me, accusing us of neglect and making her take drastic measures. The judge didn't buy that either. She reminded everyone that using someone else's identity without permission is illegal. No excuses. When the verdict came down, I felt a mix of relief and vindication. Judge Judy ordered Linda to pay back every cent and issued a warning that any further fraud would lead to criminal charges. It wasn't just a win for me. It was a message that family betrayal has consequences. Walking out of that courtroom, I realized how much this battle had changed me. I was no longer the helpless victim. I had found my voice, stood my ground, and fought back against someone I once trusted. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but I knew I could face them. This fight wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity. And sometimes, you have to take the hardest steps to protect what's yours. After leaving Judge Judy's courtroom, I thought the worst was behind me, but reality hit like a ton of bricks. The financial mess Linda created didn't just vanish overnight. My credit was still tarnished, the debt looming large, and the emotional scars ran deep. It felt like I'd survived a battle but was left to pick up the pieces alone. Mike and I spent countless nights worrying about how to rebuild our lives. Banks weren't exactly lining up to help, and every loan application was met with hesitation. I had to learn all about credit repair, fraud alerts, and legal protections I never thought I'd need. It was overwhelming, but I was determined not to let Linda's betrayal define my future. The hardest part was the shift in our family dynamics. Friends and relatives who had been neutral or unaware now took sides. Some tried to comfort me, but others whispered behind our backs, questioning if I had pushed too hard. It was isolating, and sometimes I wondered if standing up for myself had cost me more than just money. Yet amidst the pain, I discovered unexpected strength. I began sharing my story online, hoping to warn others about identity theft and toxic family dynamics. The support from strangers was incredible. Messages from people who'd been through similar experiences made me feel less alone. I realized this was bigger than me. It was a common nightmare many silently suffer. I also started therapy to help unpack the emotional fallout. Betrayal by someone so close isn't easy to heal from, and I needed help learning how to trust again. Slowly, I reclaimed pieces of myself that Linda's actions had tried to steal. One night, while scrolling through old photos, I stumbled on a picture of Linda smiling warmly at our wedding. The contrast between that image and everything that happened was almost too much to bear. It reminded me how complicated family can be, how love and betrayal can coexist in the same person. I'm still rebuilding, still healing. The scars are there, but so is my resilience. And I know that while I can't change what Linda did, I can control how I move forward. This journey taught me that sometimes standing up for yourself means losing what you thought was family, but gaining your freedom in return. Moving away from the old life felt like shedding a heavy, suffocating skin. I packed up what I could and started fresh in a city miles away from the chaos. The silence was both a relief and a reminder of everything I'd lost. No more whispered conversations behind my back. No more awkward family gatherings where smiles hid suspicion. Just me trying to breathe again. But freedom came with its own price. Nights were the hardest, the quiet space around me filled with memories and doubts. I questioned if I'd made the right choice to walk away. Was I running from my problems or finally facing them on my own terms? The line between healing and hiding blurred. Then, just when I thought I could finally relax, I got an email that froze me in place. The subject line read, "I know where you are." My heart dropped. The past wasn't done with me yet. Someone, maybe Linda, maybe someone else, was reaching out, reminding me that the nightmare wasn't over. Fear crept back, but so did a fierce determination. I wasn't the same scared woman anymore. I'd been through the worst and survived. This message was a challenge, but it was one I was ready to meet head on. I realized I had two choices: keep running from the ghosts, or stand and fight one last time. The battle wasn't just about stolen credit or money. It was about reclaiming my peace, my safety, my life. With renewed strength, I began planning. No more silence, no more hiding. It was time to take back control once and for all. Facing Linda again wasn't something I ever wanted, but it became inevitable. When we finally sat down to talk, this time with everything on the line, the air was thick with tension. She acted like nothing had changed, like we were just having a casual chat. But I wasn't fooled. The woman in front of me was a stranger wearing my mother-in-law's face. The conversation quickly turned heated. Linda tried to gaslight me, spinning twisted versions of events that made me question my own memories. "You're overreacting," she said. "I was only trying to help." But I knew better. I looked her in the eyes and told her, "You stole from me. You destroyed my credit. This isn't about help, it's about betrayal." Her reaction was shock, then anger, then something else. Fear, maybe? For a brief moment, her mask slipped, revealing the vulnerable woman I'd never known. But that moment passed, and the walls went back up. Linda didn't apologize or admit defeat. Instead, she blamed me, saying I pushed her away and made her desperate. It was painful hearing those words, twisting the truth so easily. But I refused to let her rewrite my story again. That confrontation was the emotional climax of everything. I had a choice: to crumble under the weight of betrayal or walk away stronger. I chose strength. I looked at her one last time and said, "This ends here." Then I walked out, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I wasn't the same person anymore. The sister-in-law I thought I knew was gone, and so was the family I'd imagined. But for the first time, I felt free. Free to rebuild my life on my own terms. The road ahead was uncertain, but that day marked a turning point. No matter what came next, I had reclaimed my voice and my power. After that final confrontation, silence fell over my life like a thick fog. The chaos, the arguments, the lies, the betrayals had finally quieted, but what was left behind was a vast emptiness. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat alone in my apartment, the ticking clock louder than any noise I'd heard in months. The quiet was heavy, filled with all the memories I couldn't escape. I found myself drifting back to the good times, the smiles, the laughter, the family dinners that now felt like a distant dream. I looked at old photos, scrolling through messages that once made me feel loved, now stinging like fresh wounds. It was a bittersweet cycle of grief and nostalgia that I couldn't break free from. But slowly, I started to see a different kind of beauty in the brokenness. The pain didn't disappear, but it changed form. It became a reminder of my resilience, of how far I'd come. I began sharing my story, hoping it might help others trapped in their own family storms. The messages I received from strangers who'd been through similar betrayals lifted me, making me feel less alone. I also sought therapy, learning how to rebuild trust and find peace within myself. Healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about accepting and growing stronger. And with each day, I reclaimed pieces of myself that I thought were lost forever. One evening, as I looked out at the twilight sky, I noticed how clear and vast it was, like a fresh start waiting to happen. It gave me hope that even after the darkest storms, the sun could shine again. This chapter of my life may have ended in heartbreak, but it opened the door to a new beginning. And while the scars remain, they remind me of my strength, not my weakness. If I could speak to my younger self, the woman who trusted blindly and loved fiercely, I'd tell her this: every scar, every tear, every betrayal shaped the person I am today. I wouldn't change a thing, because without that pain, I wouldn't have found my strength. This journey, though brutal and heartbreaking, made me more real, more alive. I don't have all the answers, and I don't know what the future holds, but I've learned to live with the questions, the doubts, and the shadows of the past. Sometimes I still dream of the mother-in-law I lost, the one who was supposed to be family, but turned into a stranger. And sometimes I wonder if she's out there somewhere, battling her own demons. I walk forward now, without hatred or desire for revenge. There's a strange peace in acceptance, even when things don't wrap up neatly. Life isn't about perfect endings. It's about finding meaning in the chaos and choosing who we become along the way. Maybe this story is mine, but maybe it's yours too. Because everyone has secrets, betrayals, and moments when those closest to us break our trust. What matters is how we rise after the fall. So if you're listening and you feel lost or broken, remember this: darkness never lasts forever. There's always a dawn, even when it feels impossible to see. I left that chapter behind, but sometimes, in dreams, I still go back. Not to relive the pain, but to find the parts of myself I thought were lost. Not all wounds need healing. Some scars are meant to stay, to remind us that we truly lived. That's my story. Maybe it's yours too. And if you're struggling, hold on. The night is darkest just before the dawn.